Our last speaker before a break and then the panel discussion is Genevieve Arnold, or Jenny, from the Theodore Payne Foundation, which is another powerhouse for native plants and habitats. Um, I will always picture Jenny with her little collection of bottles and jars and things and seeds, and I think she just really loves all of this stuff, and that's going to come through. And she's the perfect person to finish off the topic with, supporting regional biodiversity with locally sourced plants.
Okay, talk about a full day of tough acts to follow. I just want to start by thanking the Santa Barbara Botanic Garden for inviting Theodore Payne Foundation to share in this inspiring day and be amongst so many people who enact care for and commitment to the natural world, and who also appreciate seeds in their diverse and powerful beauty just as much as we do. And this image, I guess it's Lupin Appreciation Day, features lupin seed. And to me, these seeds embody strength because of their very tough seed coats, which allow them to stay for long periods of time under the soil before receiving their germination cue. And then you can see at the bottom left, when the seeds are ripe, the seed pods twist and open to throw the seed. Established in 1960, Theodore Payne Foundation carries on the work of Theodore Payne, who made it his life's work to educate about and conserve the flora of California. And today, in addition to our diverse programs, Theodore Payne Foundation has two nurseries. Our Sun Valley site on the left there, which is 22 acres, and includes a seed and bookstore. And then our satellite location, Los Nogales Nursery, which is in partnership with the Audubon Center at Debs Park. And in the middle, you can see Theodore Payne's first native plant catalog, which was printed in 1906. So our seed and conservation program, in addition to maintaining our in-house regional conservation seed bank, our seed and conservation program partners with multiple organizations to contribute to conservation effort at both the state and regional levels. And at the core of our dedication to these efforts is our love for where we live. Southern California is a biodiversity hotspot. And this means that we share our home with a high number of endemic plant and animal species found nowhere else on Earth. So they are endemic. And California as a whole, as has been mentioned a couple times today, I think my number's slightly different, but has the most diverse plant life in the US. And 30% of all our plants are endemic. So it means they only naturally occur here. And over 2,400 are rare, threatened, or endangered. And honing in regionally, Southern California's unique east-west running transverse ranges, pictured in the map and the photo on the right, create a variety of microclimates that support exceptional biodiversity. And what a gift it is to live in such a biologically rich environment. Biodiversity hotspots cover only 2.5% of the Earth's surface, but support more than half the endemic species that are the basis of local ecosystems. And they also experience significant stress from human activities that cause habitat degradation, fragmentation, and loss. And this results in the loss of natural vegetation, as well as reduced habitat connectivity. And also, it further opens that door to the dominance of invasive plants, such as in the left photo, you can see mustard and fountain grass, which are both extremely flammable. Megadrought and increased fire frequency, especially in the wildland-urban interface, compound this threat to our regional biodiversity. and to our rich biological diversity. So as a native plant-based organization, we asked ourselves the same question that you might be asking yourself, which is how can we help? And how can we help conserve and steward the exceptional, irreplaceable, and very threatened biodiversity in our region? And here I've included a quote that I feel is spot on, and that is that nurseries have a key role in conserving the gene pool of native plants. So as discussed in many of the talks today, native plants are the center of ecosystem function. And native gardens in general, native gardens and landscapes are plant powerhouses that can conserve water, support wildlife, thrive in heat and drought, and eradicate the need for pesticides and fertilizers. Not to mention soothe the urban soul with their serenity and incomparable beauty. And the incorporation of locally sourced plants, the incorporation of locally sourced plants furthers the ecological value of these already impactful native gardens. And in making these plants available, locally sourced plants accessible and available for ecology-based urban landscapes, we practice conservation horticulture. And as community engages around this idea, we work collaboratively for outcomes wherein everyone can participate in conservation through the support of local habitats and ecosystem health. And as mentioned by Dr. Kay, ecosystem health directly impacts human health. So Theodore Payne's Local Source Initiative, which began in 2012, is a multifaceted urban conservation program, and it aims to help address the biodiversity crisis by making regionally adapted, climate resilient native plants available to the public, as well as for use in large urban landscapes. And this is in tandem with conserving locally evolved and adapted seed through seed banking. And when you visit our nursery, you'll be able to identify a locally sourced plant by its purple tag that indicates the watershed from where it was sourced. And you can also see the locally sourced plants we have on our online store where plants can be ordered for in-person pickup. So what is a locally sourced plant and how does it integrate with the built environment? So we source our plants, our locally sourced plants from watersheds within the from watersheds within Los Angeles County. And, I'm sorry. So yes, as I mentioned, we do source our locally sourced plants from watersheds within Los Angeles County. And so that designation is what you'll see on the purple tag when you come to the nursery. So what is a locally sourced plant and how does it integrate with the built environment? And a locally sourced plant is a local ecotype. And what that means is that it carries the traits of a plant population that is adapted specifically to the conditions of its local environment, such as soils, temperature, humidity, rainfall, geology, and so forth. So this plant is going to be locally adapted. It's going to be strong, resilient, and well equipped to establish here, as well as to a changing climate. So locally sourced plants in the urban landscape can help bridge fragmented habitats at both the species and genetic levels by extending the range of these ecotypes from natural areas into neighboring built areas. And this might be plants sourced from large, more pristine natural adjacent areas, or even from habitat islands in the urban core, which consist of remnant plant assemblages that were once connected but are now islands surrounded by urban development. And this image illustrates the concept. You can see the habitat island of what the locals call Debs Park there in the middle. And so if you will, visualize with me, the seed from a naturally occurring plant in Debs Park is carefully collected and cultivated into a new plant. And that next generation plant carries the adaptive traits of the parent plant. And that plant is then in turn outplanted in a created landscape in that adjacent area. So then you can see how that fragmented habitat is being connected. And as the plant grows and thrives and supports the life cycle of pollinators, it's like the thread and needle that connect the patchwork. And here I'm going to quote from an article co-written by Peggy Olwell. And the quote is, "Locally adapted seeds reflect the evolutionary and adaptive capability of plants in an area." And Peggy, I'd just like to take a moment to note that I've not only referred to your work for my own learning, but quoted you on more than one occasion for project proposals. So your contributions fan through the watershed of seed community in more ways than you might know. So thank you. So it is thought that local pollinators may exhibit preference not only for a native plant species, but for locally occurring plant populations of that species as well. So locally sourced plants provide habitat connectivity for the wildlife that rely upon them for survival. So as discussed in the previous talk, a high-functioning, ecology-driven landscape will contain diverse types of plants. And depending on the space, that could mean annual wildflowers, shrubs, trees, grasses. And I just want to note here, we're not necessarily only talking about large, expansive garden spaces or public landscapes, but we're including pocket parks, pocket landscapes. Definitely those smaller urban patches are part of this discussion. So for methods, we collect seeds from multiple localities, always utilizing ethical collection protocols and the do no harm ethic at the forefront, the do no harm ethos at the forefront of our ethical collections. And we also collect seed from as many individual plants as possible within a given population in order to capture that genetic diversity that makes that wild population so robust. And this is just a little story about collecting seeds of the common sunflower. And here you can see that we're collecting the seeds from a habitat island, the middle photo, in Northeast Los Angeles. So at the time of collection, we take comprehensive field data, photos, the coordinates, the associated plant species. We even record the invasive species that we're noticing with it, and so forth, in hopes that that data, maybe sometime in the future, might come in handy to contribute to research about this type of work, and also so that we can carry that data with the seed collection from collection in the field through processing to storage in our seed bank. And at the bottom right, you can see Ella Anderson, Theodore Payne Foundation's botanical technician, winnowing the chaff from the seed in our seed blower. And then at the upper right, you have the resulting achenes. And an achene is a small, dry, one-seeded fruit. And one more, just to give you another taste of what it's like to make these locally sourced collections in the field. So this is lemonade berry, and we'll start at the top left. And so we start by scouting local plant populations of a given species. And then we go back and monitor for seed ripeness. And when it's deemed that the seeds are ready to collect, we collect the seed carefully, take the field data, and then that fourth photo, we take it back to the foundation where we begin to process the seed. And there you can see lemonade berry soaking because it does have a thick, leathery seed coat. And then we macerate it by pulsing it in a blender, which just means breaking up the fruit coat, and then lay the seeds out to dry. From there, a portion of the seed has been placed into cold stratification, and then it's going to be sown and propagated and cultivated as a locally sourced plant. And with another portion of the seed, that next photo, we put it through the pipeline to place it. We curate the data into our conservation seed bank. And I do feel that conservation seed banking of common species is very important. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. We don't know what's going to happen with fires, things like that. And so what we try to do is represent a species from as many populations as possible in the region to help keep that genetic diversity and keep that genetic lineage preserved. And then from there, the locally sourced lemonade berry goes into our sales yard. And that's an image of our plant placards that will tell, what type of environment it comes from in nature, light needs, water needs, and also what kind of animals utilize that plant for their habitat. And then, of course, last but not least, your garden here. The locally sourced plant is planted out in the urban environment and getting a big thank you from local wildlife who rely on it for their survival. And here I'd like to introduce you to the LA Native Plant Source. And this is an urban garden space that has been featured on Theodore Payne Foundation's garden tour. And I'm going to let Bruce's words regarding his connection to the space do the talking here. And he says that the vast majority of plants that I've planted are local to this area. A lot of our wildlife needs certain plants with which they've co-evolved to survive. By planting these plants, we are helping to lift this beleaguered planet out of crisis. This is an expression of support for the idea of biodiversity. Well, my heart would be aching if I went raceme through this without a pause for sycamore phenology, brought to you by seeds. So a sycamore is a majestic tree that occurs in waterways and floodplains, and each tree has both male and female flower clusters on one tree, and the flower clusters are called racemes. The female flower clusters are red, and the male flower clusters are a chartreuse or green. And pollen is wind carried from the male raceme to the female raceme, and then that green raceme drops off the tree. And over time, that remaining raceme forms these spherical seed clusters. And each individual seed in that cluster is an achene, which again is a small, dry, one-seeded fruit. And then over time, that raceme dries down and eventually, drops off the tree, and the seed sphere starts breaking down. And you can see in the image on the right that the achenes have little bits of fluff on them that aid in being carried by the wind or the water. So, it seems like a couple slides were missing. That's okay. Resilience and diversity, pieces of the puzzle. Nature addresses challenges through diversity. So our local source initiative and regional seed bank mirror this template through integrated methods designed to meet the goals of supporting regional biodiversity through seed conservation and propagation, locally sourced plants, knowledge sharing, and community collaboration. So to start with partnerships and collaboration, Seed LA is a collaboration of representatives from several Los Angeles-based organizations, and our mission is to increase the availability of locally adapted native seeds to conserve and enhance the ecological diversity of the greater Los Angeles area. And our work was developed from the Native Seed Resources Coalition, which formed a long time ago in 2012. And today we're thrilled to be working with the Nature Conservancy and California State Parks on the Bowtie Demonstration Project. And this project aims to create vital habitat, improve water quality, increase public access to open spaces and the LA River. And Seed LA, as a collaborative group, is going to provide thousands of locally sourced plants for this project, as well as store seed for future large-scale projects in the region. And another seed story. This is southern black walnut, and you can see on the left, there we are on a habitat island scouting the walnut trees, and then assessing the population for collection, taking our field data, processing the seeds. There's an outer husk to remove. And then once the seeds are clean, carefully sowing them. And then there is the beautiful walnut seedling on the right. And that little tree will be destined for a full life on the banks of the Los Angeles River. Our local source initiative facilitated our white sage project. And this was about conserving the seed of white sage, which is under widespread threat from poaching as well as urban development. And in partnership with regional indigenous organizations and tribal entities, we were able to seed bank the seed and then share out white sage plants as deemed beneficial within these indigenous communities. So here we are. Theodore Payne Foundation, we grow about 100,000 plants a year. And to date, since 2016, we have put 23,154 locally sourced plants out our nursery gates. And I'm going to talk about some statistics here, and they're based on LA City and LA County, but I feel like the template for this program and for this topic can be applied to many urban areas around the world. So I'll start by saying that LA County, as mentioned by Naomi, is the most populous in the world at almost 10 million residents. And in LA County, nearly $100 million a year are spent on landscape plants. So that's a staggering demand. And now I'll hop to LA City. Over half the land in the city of LA is either residential, commercial, or public park spaces. So there's a staggering demand for the landscape plants in our region, and there's a lot of room to grow. So let's recenter that demand around conservation horticulture. Native plants, locally sourced plants, and ecology-forward gardens and landscapes. Third, research partnerships, landscape mapping, and formalized garden trials. And a lot of these talks today were very exciting to me for potential in this context because getting more data about the function of locally sourced plants in urban areas will not only deepen our understanding of how they work, but also help us spread the message effectively. So looking forward to future collaborations on that count. And seed regeneration and bulking, as discussed by multiple speakers today, of course, is going to be need to be robust and is imperative, and also aligns with the National Native Seed Strategy. And last but not least, dedicated and persistent seed conservation. So seed conservation is one of the most intricate time-consuming, and often challenging things that I've ever undertaken in my life, but it's also by far one of the most rewarding. And I intend to persist. I intend to persist and keep doing this. And I, along with all of you, intend to persist. And so when we all disperse today from this auditorium, I hope that we'll think about our own individual strengths and our own areas of dedication that are pieces of the puzzle in preserving our precious biodiversity. And that's it.